Hello, this is Evi Tselika, and welcome to the online info session, Here and Now, Arts Learning in Times of Social Distancing. It is an info session from the BA in Fine Art from the Department of Design and Multimedia, the School of Humanities and Social Sciences of the University of Nicosia, and it is by myself, Evi Tselika, Constantinos, Taliotis, and Pelapaissiotis. It is I will just be briefly introducing all the presenters. So I'm Evi Tselika, I'm the coordinator of the Fine Art program. My practice and research focus on contemporary art, curating, art education, and socially engaged practices. And I work a lot in writing and in making exhibitions happen. My colleague Pelapaissiotis is an artist photographer. He has lectured not only here in Cyprus, but also in Goldsmiths at the University of London. He's a PhD candidate at the University of Reading and has exhibited and created events and publications, not just in Cyprus, but also around the world. Constantinos Taliotis is a research-based artist living in Cyprus, a lecturer on the Fine Art program, and his practice focuses on narratological, aesthetic, and architectural modalities deriving from popular culture and iconography, works in immersive installations, photographic tableau vivants, videos, books, and also exhibits widely both in Cyprus and on an international scale. So this online info session is about art education in times of a pandemic, and the structure it will follow is short presentations by the lecturers and then a discussion on how times of social distancing we construct an arts learning community, what form it takes, what are the limits imposed on studio practice, what can be gained from online learning, and so forth. So the recent digital shifts that have taken place in art education because of social distancing measures have been unprecedented. Here we will be considering and addressing how we have responded here at the BA program of Fine Art at the University of Nicosia to these sudden changes by referring to our students' work from this semester and demonstrating how we continue to offer high-quality art education despite having to learn in isolation conditions. Usually every June, we have finished the exams and are setting up for final year exhibitions and departmental ones. The studios that we're in at the moment are bustling with activity for preparations. 2020 will surely mark the way education, including art education, becomes reconfigured and transformed. This year, we have missed the way arts learning, because of its studio-based nature, shapes a community of shared making processes. However, an online dimension has been introduced in our educational realities, and our community of art learning had to swiftly be carried out via our digital platforms. So in the following 55 minutes or so, we will present our approach as a program of study and the type of arts learning processes that social distancing conditions gave rise to through our students' work. And to situate this, I will be shortly presenting on the BA program the ethos, approach, and structure, as well as our wider community connections and events. So the program itself has been running since 20, average of 10 to 20 students, and it's a free BA in Fine Art to be offered by Republic of Cyprus accredited university and not in collaboration with a non-Cypriot institution. The program and the team have an international outlook and cultivate a creative environment in line with contemporary art directions. And we're based in Nicosia, which is the cultural capital of the island. As a program, we put skills in a diverse range of fine art media and contemporary creative practices. We require a commitment to studio-based study, and we have a focus on contemporary art and experimentation, training across traditional and new fine art media, with choices from a lot of electives in the fields of art, design, as well as multimedia. Students define a self-directed path supported by arts writing and research courses, and thus acquire transferable creative skills and contextual abilities. Some of the learning outcomes of this program are independent and reflective professional studio practice, effective skills and experimentation in an array of fine art media, introductory practice-based skills and experimentations on personal areas of visual and material interests. The development of a direction in art studio practice and displaying negotiated process, cultural and contemporary art directions, and the ability to apply all of these understandings and abilities to their own professional path. Our ethos here is described by an emphasis on a direction towards independent studio-based study and the courses allowing students to enter into further studies of the professional world with a clearer direction. We achieve this through a synthesis between practices and theory, as well as the development of an art school community where ideas are generated, discussed, tested, and through a context of learning that is facilitated by practitioners and theorists, and in the bustling environment of the university community. Our focus is to enable our students to think, create, and act in collaboration with their peers. And we try to encourage this in a strong international outlook and in shaping such. Here you can see the organizational structure of our academic path. And here you can have the different courses. Visual outcome. The first year we have formal and conceptual understanding. The second year it gives you a spoken image. The third year is of fitness, and really focuses on professional practice. And here are some of our studios and creating, and we carry out courses and emphasis on completion to be able to pursue postgraduate degrees, become art educators in formal and informal film, printing, and design studios in cultural foundations and gallery settings, as well as developing their artistic practice and exhibiting it in contemporary art contexts. The following slides I will just be quickly going through just to give you an indication of what type of extracurricular activities we organize, which not just involve our students, but also demonstrate our ethos. So every year we have final year exhibitions. These have been taking place in collaboration with the Point Center art. International international artists present to our students. Conferences that bring to Cyprus widely recognized academics such as and different sort of exhibitions and events that really allow students to be able to do their work without affection. There are different examples. We also work together with of prevention, able stand workshops in at camp society our students can belong to, which also organizes different sort of activity for its members. Our students receive awards in different and that comes up both my presentation program and department, but also almost all the contemporary art institutions of our collaborations at the international level. At the heart of our program are our students, and to provide a learning environment which allows them to develop as contemporary art practitioners and citizens connected with our local, regional, and global art communities. And this brings my presentation to a close, and will be followed by the presentation by my colleague Constantinos Taliotis, which will be showing you academic lockdown conditions this past spring semester. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this lovely morning. I'm Constantinos Taliotis, and I will be presenting the work of two of our students, Rafaela Constantinou, who is a first-year student, and Miriam Gad, who graduated this year. Firstly, every student here at UNIC for us is very special. What we try to do here is to empower students to discover their interests and expand them through different perspectives, to articulate these interests in conversation with contemporary as well as historical art theory debates. Now, this is achieved, but most importantly, through art, guided with answers, learn how to observe, how to be critical and expand their analytical skills. Art is not only a subject dealing with questions of aesthetics. It is most importantly an ongoing conversation with debates of wider social interest, debates about ethics, debates about ecology, history, gender, religion, and so on and so forth. We want our graduate students to be dynamic and independent thinkers about our different years studies are taught experimenting and failing. Started her project with a site visit, a visit to a specific location to observe the site, to take photos, make videos, make sketches, and record sounds. And the objective of the assignment was for each student to accumulate materials and analyze in order for each student to identify a subject direction. Rafaela was interested and she was fascinated by the sounds of this environment. So she after the visit, she went back home and she kept recording domestic sounds. She was interested in how sounds and images are intertwined. Now let's listen to some of Rafaela's recordings. Rafaela was looking into the extent to which sounds, what we see, what we don't see, and the extent to which what we see or what we don't see conditions how we see. Sound and these recordings over a basic silent film and how it sounds with your self. Rafaela had not worked video or sound for this project, and she had never used a video editing software until that point. She's a very enthusiastic student, and she also researched about Foley artists that create sounds for films. She started becoming interested in the structure of video, and more specifically, the fact that video, moving image, is actually made out of photos, is made out of still frames. So she kept experimenting, but this time by making frame-by-frame animations in an attempt to understand how sounds correspond to image over a sequence of time. That gradually led her to the idea of the flipbooks are frame-by-frame animations in the form of a book. So she proceeded to make a flipbook with photos of herself making different sounds. This is her first. Now, the more she made, the more she was reflecting and understanding her medium and her thinking process. And whereas at first she thought that flipbooks are silent, by making the first flipbook, she realized that the flipping of pages does indeed make a sound. Different types of paper, different size of papers make different sounds. So she started recording herself flipping different books. And that led Rafaela to yet another flipbook with now this is precisely an expansive approach, an approach of pushing and pulling in order to develop a project, a way of thinking and learning through making. Rafaela embraced a kaleidoscopic analysis of her own topic of interest, and she compiled a compendium of project manifestations, always in conversation with art theory and art history, and constantly challenging herself and pushing herself to find new ideas. Now, whereas first-year students are encouraged to broaden and expand they learn how to. During the last year, mainly photos that she found at second-hand shops. Her final year project was a thorough negotiation both with the collected material as well as with collecting through an independent and an in-depth inquiry. Miriam addressed questions about found imagery as well as the problematics of reclaiming and reconstructing the past. Her work elicits questions about how stories are narrated, who is narrating them, and how is the narration to be experienced. Approach, so she used a number of mediums like text, found imagery, video, voice, and book art, and she articulated a comprehensive project. By the final year is that students are competent not only to delve into their interests and unpack through their practice courses, but they also calibrate their work along notions of display and spectatorship. They are expected to semiotics of exhibition. They are in a position of exhibiting their work and graduating from the university as artists ready to have professional exhibitions. Using the found images, Miriam developed a video essay in the form of a spatial installation that unfolds in a non-linear way over 10 monitors scattered around a gallery. This is a floor plan of Miriam's installation. Now let's watch some of Miriam's videos.
Not all of the past is meant to survive, I said to myself, as I stood on the grassy plain, feeling the wind on my face. Some moments are important. Some are not. Erase, delete, repeat.
The photographer is a reporter, not an interpreter, a seeker before meaning, perhaps a scribe, but not a prophet.
How long was I standing for? As long as no one illuminated their face with their phone. It was as if time didn't exist, only events. I could still remember the Americans landing on the moon, the Second World War, ancient Egypt and Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra, the funeral of Princess Diana, Freddie Mercury in the 2000s, a decade which I read on the internet to be a dreadful decade.
The screens in this installation, in their default state, emit a white light, and the viewer that the images, along with the equivalent audio, they are activated. And as the viewer approaches a screen, they witness an image subtly appear. Through the images, they are given a fragment of the narration, only for it to disappear. And with this installation, memory, linearity, space, and time, but most importantly about stillness, remoteness, and proximity, issues that we are all currently dealing with under the lockdown situation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, the lockdown deprived Miriam of the opportunity. The department here at UNIT is doing everything, we're doing everything we can to assist Miriam as well as the other students to exhibit their work even after their graduation. We try to support our graduates even after they leave. Thank you. Now I'm gonna, Haris Pelapaissiotis, my colleague, is gonna proceed with some more presentations of our students' work. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I want to, following on from Constantinos' presentation, I want to refer to two courses which I was teaching this semester. Apologies, everybody. Technical difficulties, technical problems. Hopefully, they're now being sorted out. So let me start again. So following on from the presentation by my colleagues, Constantinos, Taliotis, and Evi Tselika, I want to refer to two courses which I was teaching this semester and which were affected by the lockdown. The courses are Advanced Studio Art Practice and Final Year Project and Exhibition, and they are part of a succession of studio courses that make up the third and fourth year of the fine art program. Within the overall context of the fine art program, in the third and fourth year, greater emphasis is placed on studio practice. Studio practice means students are guided towards finding their own direction as future artists and are aided and supported in various ways in developing their own visual language. The studio courses are designed for students to think and work independently. So in a sense, the isolation period was a good test of how well our fine art students are trained to be self-motivated and continue to push themselves to produce new and interesting work simply because it is something that they believe in. With that in mind, I want to illustrate this presentation by showing some work that was produced during the lockdown, starting with the Advanced Studio Art Practice. This course is designed to get students to clarify their ideas and develop their particular perspectives on art through their own personal interests. It involves thinking about the type of theme a student wants to pursue, how to go about researching that particular theme, make discoveries through a creative way of working, test out new ideas, work across different mediums, and engage in a process of making and reflection through critical discussion. Rajwa Karandzic is a Jordanian, and during lockdown, she returned to Amman, where she lives. Before the lockdown, Rajwa's interests begin to shift thematically towards how artists have engaged through their art with physical health, and in particular, how blood circulates through the body. She began to search for a visual language appropriate to her as an artist that would express these interests. Here we see a few photographs made by Rajwa, and as we could see, one is from her bedroom in Amman. In conversation through web conferencing, we discussed the possibility of her producing a sleeve that could be worn as a type of garment. This was to be made of paper cutout shapes symbolic of blood cells. As this final video demonstrates, Rajwa takes this idea a step further when she produces an animation that is the product of a process of working where her particular personal interests are explored by combining painting with object making and then incorporating these elements into a video animation and performance that effectively communicate her thematic in a very visual and engaging way that is her own. From the very beginning of the semester, Andrei Dimitriou was clear that she wanted to work with a fine art software program called Processing. This is a free download and open source program. She had not worked with this software before. So the first step was to actually learn how to use it and to make some basic visual 2D animations. I will play a couple. Now, as this video demonstrates, she had obviously progressed technically towards the end of the semester to produce something more demanding and visually more engaging. The work is still very much in progress, but what is being demonstrated here is how to work logically and methodically, step by step, in order to arrive at something substantial that potentially may lead to visually and conceptually even more challenging work in the following semester. So here we are seeing the work of Constantinos Toumasis. Constantinos is clearly a painter who, during the lockdown, produced these 3 paintings. Whilst the male human figure is certainly important in his work, what is interesting here is that these are not simple studies of human form, but explorations about looking and seeing. Constantinos' own explanation of his work is that he wants to situate the viewer in a space of ambiguity and uncertainty of their own position in relationship to the depiction of men. Alisa Kyriakou produced this collage in a previous year. Collage is something that comes naturally to her. During lockdown, she made the curtain that you see in this photograph hanging on the window, a kind of luminous grid of colors cut up and sewn together from cast-off pieces of fabric. Together, we discussed the possibility of creating a colorful patchwork that would form into a type of inner membrane of her room. That was perhaps too ambitious, given the time available to her. But what was interesting was the way that collage extended to becoming a living spatial experience for her. Therefore, the restrictions of the lockdown were here turned into an opportunity of learning something new about her own work. I want to move to the second course, the 4th year course, which is the final year project and exhibition. The general target being that students learn to refine their work and take it to a level of sophistication that is professional and worthy to be shown in a public space such as a gallery. This is the work of Evdokia Efthimiou, and the first thing to say about Evdokia is that she likes bright color, sugary sweets, and that is part of who she is. So in this case, that recognition formed the basis of exploration for her artwork. Evi's photographs play with the conflict between a taste for something so excessive in terms of it being highly processed food product, being a highly processed food product, and the psychological guilt that is attached to desiring such a product. And that's something that we start to see in these photographs. In an attempt to take this play between attraction and guilt more personal, she places herself in the photographs so that they are in turn transformed into types of self-portraits. In the process of making these photographs, she further becomes aware of a tradition of body decoration, and as we could see here, where in this photograph, which was taken from her research, shows photographs made by the Austrian priest and ethnographer Martin Husinder at the early part of the 20th century. Husinder documented the native people of Terra del Fuego in Chile. Evi begins to play with these connections in her work, where the notions of the tribal, as we could see here, is not only in terms of its traditional shamanic sense, but takes on a more contemporary consumerist expression. Moving on to the work of another fourth-year student, Kleanthis Constantinos. Kleanthis is someone who likes to make masks of characters of the imagination, which in turn form stories. His photographs propose the possibility of narratives, as we can see here, which are never quite resolved, but rather continue to play in the viewer's own imagination. Again, this work is what had originated in the Advanced Studio Art Practice course and was much more fully realized as a more complete set of images in his final year study. Chrysanthos Diamandakis, I have added this slide showing the work of Chrysanthos, not only because I think he's a fine portrait painter in the classical tradition, but also because it's a reminder of the need of a studio space. I think one of the things that was missed during the lockdown by students was having access to the studio, not only as a physical space, but also in terms of the culture of studio, which is created by like-minded people working together. Again, photographs of some of Chrysanthos' paintings. Finally, I'd like to refer to the last student here, Elena Hadjigeorgiou. This microscopic photographs which we are seeing were made by Elena during her Advanced Studio Art Practice course. At this stage of her development, she began combining microscopic photography with her love of nature. She brings this combination together to form a single landscape, as we can see here, that is both fantastic in the sense that it is not something readily available to the human eye, and at the same time, real in that it's composed from two actual realities, so that the image is the product of what is actually seen by the naked eye, and a microscopic reference to the same landscape as image taken from the particular site. During lockdown, Eleanor's attention shifted to the human body, and in particular to working with human fluids, tears, mucus, saliva, blood, urine, and so on. Her attempts to find a visual way of referring to something that is alive rather than a static image led her to produce animated microscopic photographs. Here I'm showing two examples from a set of about 12 such animations. I want to complete my presentation with these two animations, and I will be inviting Constantinos and Evi to join me in a discussion. Thank you for listening.
Oh, hello. Thank you for listening to us again. Sorry, 1 minute. So basically now we're going to be having a very short discussion, as due to technical problems we ran over our initial expected time that we would have taken. So through these 3 short presentations, we tried to demonstrate how, as a program and a department here at the University of Nicosia that focuses on fine art, we responded to the challenges brought on by having to take our arts learning processes online during the recent events. We hope that we have provided a glimpse into our processes, and we will just discuss in brief a little bit about how this transition process took place, the limits imposed, what can be gained from online learning processes, how teaching online alters the art making process, and questions about art and experience. So in the last few months, since we enclosed ourselves to our home, the way we have been experiencing and of course teaching, experiencing art and teaching art have shifted by going online. Museums, festivals, foundations shifted their collections and activities, providing us access to a wealth of artifacts online. So to start with, I wanted, and this is where we're going to stay at, I just wanted to, for Harris and Constantinos, to let us know their thoughts on what type of narratives has this online shift made you consider in relation to the material dimension of artistic production, the making processes encountered in the studio, and if you see any shifts that will long-term affect art education. So if you just want to make a short comment each on this, and then we will be closing this online info session.
Well, okay, maybe I should start. I mean, I think that with everything there are both positive elements and some negative or challenging elements. Okay, one of the things that I believe was missed was this camaraderie that you have in the studio, not only, as I pointed out, not only in terms of the physical space, but also in terms of a studio culture. This is very difficult to cultivate online. It's not, some kind of culture is cultivated, but it's a very different, it takes a very different form, right? So we cannot fully exclude the physical studio space. I think that's very important for any artist. At the same time, what was interesting was students learn to improvise, they learn to become more focused, they learn to function and to stand on their own 2 feet, and that was very encouraging. I think the process was surprisingly smooth and also productive, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Harris. It was a very challenging period for all of us, both the faculty as well as the students. I mean, technically, the migration to online teaching was very smooth. It went very well. We started very early on. We moved like from week 1 to online teaching. And one of the advantages that I think came out, one of the positive aspects that came out of this lockdown situation was the fact that students lost in a way, access to endless materials. You know, when you're working, especially like some courses, sculptural courses, when you're planning to do something and you know that you have endless possibilities, sometimes you get lost. So it was very challenging to think, and students had to think and be creative and innovative in terms of what sorts of materials do we have around us? How can we use whatever is available in everyone's domestic environment? And that is a very, very useful lesson for every student, for every artist, to learn to work with whatever is available. Another positive aspect, I think, was the question of how do you present your work online? How do you photograph your work? And how do you communicate whatever you've done when you don't have the opportunity to exhibit it in 3D? So, of course, it was a very challenging period, but I think that it made us see and understand things in a way that we wouldn't have done otherwise.
Great, thank you. So we will not be continuing the discussion. However, if you have any questions on the program or would like to contact us, you can instantly find information on the website. We hope that through this exchange between myself, Haris, and Constantinos, which are lecturers on the Fine Art program, we have created some problematization or trigger some thoughts in relation to the current practices of art education and how, following this experience of shifting online, what the futures of arts education and arts learning will be. And where the digitization process that we have all been experiencing come to meet the need for materiality and for a more tactile and physical presence with mature materials, as well as the studio culture. So we would like to thank you for watching us.
Thank you.
And say goodbye.